All right, welcome everybody to another live stream and happy Memorial Day for those that of you in the United States that are celebrating that for tomorrow. And I'm very excited for this live stream because I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit of about something for next year, no matter where you are in terms of your education or as far as your classes. And I do know that some of you have already gone to that step of assigning your classes. But I think what I'm going to cover here in the beginning of this live stream can be very, very helpful for you. I also want to give a nice shout out to all the people that have submitted their questions on the Google Forms as well as on Discord. I went ahead and reviewed, and I do have some great questions that I'm going to answer today. And if you give me your name or your handle, I'll give you a nice little shout out. But we're just going to kind of go through. Some of these are actually from last week that I didn't really talk about. So we're going to do a little exponent here. We're going to talk about sine of 30 degrees. We have a polynomial problem. I think this was writing the equation. Okay, so we'll talk about writing the equation of the polynomial. We're going to talk about test anxiety and some things to prepare. We're going to do a synthetic division problem. And then I'll go through the chat and kind of see if there's any questions. I do appreciate it. I did see that some of you guys have gotten to the chat early. I apologize. A lot of times just, I'm not able to add questions here at the end just because I want to make sure that I can get through the questions up there. But I will go back and take a look at those questions when I'm done with this live stream, depending on how long it takes. But I did want to give a nice little shout out to Raed, Jesus, Rocky Boy, Tamil, Math Legend, Jose, Tumza, Jenny, Yusuf. Wow, there's a lot of you. That's very good to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining on. And I also wanted to thank all of you members that have joined my channel. It has been awesome for me to be able to work on some new content, which, to be honest with you, would not be possible if it wasn't for you guys supporting my channel. I am still completing my exact same work, guys, and going live for you. You do not need to be a member. However, in the membership, I am adding a new piece of content that I do not post on YouTube weekly. So if that is something you're interested in, feel free to go ahead and check it out. Otherwise, I want to get into what this live stream was about. And this live stream was about basically how to decide the classes to take next year. And I know a lot of you, especially if you're in college or even if you have aspirations and you want to do something that is going to be math heady, you have a math track that you need to follow, right? But I will tell you one thing that I have found being a teacher is that a lot of students have a lot of stress that they have placed on themselves to make sure that they are always completing the right amount of courses in the right amount of time with the best possible grades. And I do understand, and I fully understand from one perspective as far as scholarships and competition and everything like that, that is completely acceptable to understand that you got to put your best foot forward. But in the same respect, I see a lot of students that are getting to the next class and they're not prepared, right? A lot of students walk into my class in pre-calculus and they're not prepared. They did what they needed to do to get the best possible grade in the previous classes, but they didn't actually learn the stuff. And that's not for everybody, but a lot of students, when they have so much stress and they're not able to put in the time and effort into the class that they need to, they'll just kind of like skip over things. And I obviously, for many of you know that, with mathematics, things build on each other. And I want to give a quick little story. This is exactly what happened to me, that, I was showing my students my grades when I was in high school. And I asked them, what do you guys think I got my grades in high school? And what do you think I got, or for pre-calculus, what do you think my grade was in pre-calculus in high school? And what do you think it was in college? Now in high school, I didn't really care as much about pre-calculus. I didn't really care about my grades as much. I was just kind of floating by. I was much more of an athlete and just kind of focused on that and friends. And, my math education was not really on top of my mind. And then it really kind of dawned on me after pre-calculus that I was like, yeah, I actually want to become a math teacher. So my grade in high school was a D because I didn't really apply myself. And also I didn't, from what I learned in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry, I didn't have a great foundation. I just kind of did what I needed to do to get by because I never thought I was going to use this stuff. I never thought I would actually want to become, a teacher or an engineer. I liked it, but, I wasn't great at it. And then it wasn't until I decided that, hey, I actually kind of think teaching might be what I want to do. And out of all the subjects I'd like, math would be my favorite. Well, that became a problem because I had to obviously know what I was talking about. And I had to go back and relearn a lot of this stuff. So with all that pressure of doing well in all the other classes, I did put in the time and effort into my math classes. So guess what? When I had to go and get my degree, I had to put in a lot more effort into pre-calculus, into math. I had to relearn a lot of the stuff that I should have already learned and into my classes, and it came back to bite me. So when I come into giving you guys some advice as far as the classes, I know we all have our tracks, and I know we all have different courses, different scholarships, and everything we need to go and apply for. And that is perfectly great in its own regard. I just want to make sure that, you guys understand that education is not a race. You have your whole life to continue to learn. And as long as you are applying yourself and doing the best you can do not overstress yourself on taking a class. There's not a class, there's not a grade, there's not a teacher that is going to define how you are going to be successful in life. So make sure that you're putting in your work into your classes, but don't try to add too much to your workload where you are just becoming stressed, you're overwhelmed, and it's too much it's just too much for you to handle. Obviously, a lot has changed in the last couple months, and there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of not knowing how things are going to unravel in the next couple months into the next couple years. So just make sure that you step back, really decide on what it is you want to do and what is the best path to with that forward, rather than just saying, I'm just going to take everything that I can possibly do. And I think that I've seen a lot of students that are just taking classes to just take classes just because they want to get better grades and they just want to compete with other students and everything else. And what has happened is they get partway through those classes and they end up having to drop them because it's just too much stress. It's too much work. And in the end, what is it really worth? Maybe that is what you need. Maybe you do need all those classes and all that stress and all that effort, and that's fine. But for a lot of students, they're just taking a lot of this stuff, a lot of these classes and stress on unnecessarily. So that is my advice for you in this live stream, is to just take a step back and really kind of make sure you understand what it is you want to get out of your education, and make sure that whatever it is you decide, that you put all your effort into that. Because if you don't, kind of like me, right? I didn't step back and decide, am I going to really need to know this math stuff? Is this what I really want to do? I probably would have said, you know what, there might be a chance, so I should probably put in more effort into this class. And because what I had to do, I had to go back to the teacher lab and study and overstudy and relearn everything that I learned before. And I will remind you though, when I got that D in high school, I ended up with an A when I was in college because I put in the effort and I was focused and determined. So that is all I have for you guys on that live stream. Whoa, hey, it's awesome. Wow. Updated the chat for me, guys. That's very cool to see. Do you have any private online classes? I will have more information on private online classes coming for you. So I'm going to go and get into the open Q&A. Before I do that, I just want to notice you. Yes, I do see you. So then next year I'm going to take Algebra 2, trigonometry. Awesome. I'm just looking at my chat. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, absolutely, Jose. Mellow Bears, I stress out about grades. Yes, I know. It's definitely, and it's normal. There's nothing wrong with, nothing wrong with that. But I think it just, we put grades on such a big pedestal in our society. And, it's, in reality, it's not the end of the world. And I'm going to talk about that again when we get into anxiety. So now let's go and work into some mathematics. All right. So the first problem, this student actually asked me, and I forgot to write down, they actually wrote down their name on the Google form, and I apologize, I forgot to add it in there. So, but they had the work, either their work or their teacher's work, and they were asking about a certain problem as far as where their student got this number. And I can definitely see how they would have got confused, because what their teacher did is their teacher used the power to product rule. So the teacher rewrote their problem like this, right? Because when you have a negative in front of the 3, it's really the same thing as a -3 times 3 to the -1, right? Because this power, -1, is only raising the 3, not the -3. If it was raising the -3, then that would need to be in parentheses. So what the teacher was doing was just making sure to separate the negative from the 3 so that you understand there was a difference there. Then what you can do is you can apply the what we call power to product rule. And the power to product rule basically means that when you have a base separated by multiplication raised to a power, you can distribute that power to both bases. So basically we have -1 to the -2nd power times 3 to the, 3 to the -1st to the -2nd power. And we know that the -2nd power is going to put it as a reciprocal. It doesn't really matter in this case. If it's in the reciprocal and in the numerator, you're squaring a -1, right? So it's still going to be positive and you're multiplying by 1. So it's really just the same as multiplying by 1, but it kind of looks a little hard, fancy that way. In this case, you're going to have 3 in the, this is going to be in the denominator, but then, so you write this, so you have 1/3 to the -2nd, right? But then when you're raising something to the -2nd, that's reflipping it basically as a reciprocal to be 3 to the 2nd. So therefore your final answer is just going to be 9. So hopefully that helps out. I think I answered Anshik's question last live stream as far as how to evaluate the sine of 30 degrees. I'm going to do my best because there was another question on Discord that the student was asking, is like, how do you evaluate sine? You know, I understand the sine is on a triangle. I understand it's the y coordinate on the unit circle, but I don't understand how to evaluate sine just as a regular number, which I think is an amazing question. And the reason why I think it's an amazing question, because it's the exact same thing that I didn't understand when I was a student. I didn't understand what was sine. It didn't like make sense to me. I could do it, you know, I could put it in a problem and I could figure it out, but I never really conceptually understood what was sine. So I'm going to try to do that as much justice as I possibly can right now. Well, at least in not really as much justice in a couple of minutes, because that'd be like a whole video that I'd make. Which thankfully for my members, that's allowing me to be able to sit down because I'm not in my classroom. I literally had to clean out all of my stuff in my classroom, and I have a studio now. Well, not really a studio, but obviously you can see I have a green screen that I'm working on, but also working on some new videos that I'm looking forward to unveiling on my channel here very, very shortly. So, all right, so sine. Now, the best thing I can describe with sine is, so sine of 30 degrees, I don't really want to get into where the sine of 30 degrees comes from. So let's go and get into, all right, let's just do this. I'm not going to, I don't need to give you the 30, 60, 90 proof. So here is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And if you recall, a 30, 60, 90 triangle has the relationship, if that is the short leg x, then that is the hypotenuse, which is 2x, and then the long leg is x square root of 3. Okay, so remember that the sine is, yes, when you have the sine of 30 degrees or the sine of any angle, right? It doesn't matter what the angle is. Let's just put that as theta. It's going to be the opposite over the hypotenuse, okay? So in this example here, you can see that the opposite, so we could say sine of 30 degrees is equal to x over 2x. Well, obviously, it doesn't really matter what the sides are of the triangle, right? I mean, the x could be 5, x could be 10. It doesn't matter. The x's get divided out. You can see that's going to equal 1/2. So it doesn't matter if it's in a triangle, or let's go and take a look at the unit circle. So the unit circle is another special relationship, and it's really just a way for us to organize our special triangle relationships. So let's go and take a look at 30, 60, 90 here inside of this coordinate grid. So there's 30 degrees. Now, the one thing we understand about on the unit circle is that the hypotenuse, or the radius of the unit circle, is 1. Well, again, look at the relationship between the hypotenuse and the short leg. If whatever the short leg is, you double it to get the hypotenuse. So if you have the hypotenuse, you're going to divide it by 2 to get the short leg. So if here is 1, then that means here is 1/2. And then all you're going to do to go from short leg to long leg is multiply by square root of 3. So that's going to be 1/2 times square root of 3 is going to be the square root of 3 over 2. Now, when we look at this in terms of a coordinate point, you can see that this is the square root of 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. All right. Now, again, let's go through our definition. Forget about the coordinate points here for a second. What is the sine of 30 degrees? The sine of 30 degrees, right, remember, is opposite over hypotenuse. So that's going to be 1/2 over 1, which is just 1/2. So the reason why the sine is just the y coordinate, it's not just the y coordinate. That's just like a shortcut. It's still the opposite over hypotenuse. But when the hypotenuse is 1, then we don't really need to write opposite over hypotenuse. We can just shorthand this as 1/2. Okay? So that is going to be our helpful tip there. So to review the sine, what is the sine? The sine is just the comparison of the opposite compared to the hypotenuse. How big is the opposite side compared to the hypotenuse? We know that the opposite side is never going to be as big as the hypotenuse, right? That's why the ratio of sine is always less than 1. Because if it was 1, they'd be exactly the same. In the same respect, sine can never be 0, or at least in terms of triangle. When we get to the unit circle, you could say that 0 degrees, right? That's going to produce sine of 0. But it doesn't really make sense here in terms of this triangle form. That's why we use the unit circle to understand the sine of 0 and the sine of -1, so on and so forth. But when you're thinking about like what is the sine of a random number, like for instance, sine of 31 degrees, or in a radians, like pi over 7, something that you don't know. Well, the reason why we typically use the same numbers is because those are part of triangles that we know the sides of the triangle. Like we know the ratio of the sides. So, or at least the side lengths, right? Because typically you're going to have your 30-60-90 triangle and your 45-45-90 triangle. Otherwise, the sine of 30 degrees, that's going to be on a right triangle, right? To evaluate your trigonometric functions, it could come from a right triangle. You're going to need to know those triangle relationships. So typically what I would just say is use a calculator, and then you're going to have to approximate. Okay. So when we're using our special right triangles, we can use an exact answer. But when you have something that is not on a special right triangle or in the unit circle, then you're going to want to use your calculator. All right, let's get into some polynomials. So I believe the student was asking us for writing the equation. That's so weird. All right, so on writing the equation, the student gave us a couple points here. We have f of 1 equals 6. All right, now this is important. That means that's x, and that's like your y. That's a coordinate point, right? So on the graph, that's your coordinate points. F of -1, f of 0, f of 2 is equal to 0. That means when you plug in those numbers, you're getting 0. Well, that is the definition of a 0 of a polynomial function. When you plug in a number, you get 0. The zeros are also the x-intercepts of the graph. Now, so what that means here is that means x equals -1, x equals 0, and x equals 2 are zeros. Well, if those are zeros, I can write the equation of the polynomial. Right? I can say y equals, let's just do, y equals x plus 1 times x minus 0, right? I'm just using the opposite. I'm setting those equal to 0 times x minus 2, okay? Now again, I'm using y instead of f of x. You could also use f of x in this case. Now, here comes something interesting though, because those are going to be the zeros, right? The zeros represent the graph. Now, however, of this polynomial function, do we know what the leading coefficient is? No, we do not know the leading coefficient. We know what the zeros are, but wouldn't you agree, like if you had a graph, let's say here are the zeros, couldn't the graph look like this? But couldn't it also look like this? Oops, not that. Not that one. But couldn't it also look like this? Yeah, you don't know what the graph looks like, right? We don't know, is this leading coefficient positive or is it negative? So since we don't know what A is, I'm going to put, or since we don't know what the leading coefficient is, I'm going to put A in here. Now, how can we figure out A? Well, again, here's our coordinate point, right? They gave us X and they gave us Y. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in 6 for Y and 1 in for my X coordinates, and then I'm going to solve for A. And that'd be 1 minus 0, 1 minus negative 2. 6 equals, let's see, A times 2 times 1 times negative 1. 6 equals A times negative 2, right? That becomes negative 2. So A is equal to negative 3. Now, as far as writing the equation, I'm going to save myself a little bit of time because you do have to do a little bit more work. I'll write this in function mode, but you're going to have an f of negative 3. And then in this case, you can just, instead of writing x minus 0, you can just write that as x. And then here you could write that as x plus 2. Actually, I can finish this problem. That's not too bad. Let's see, x plus 1 and x minus 2. All right, so that's a negative 3x. This is going to be x squared, let's see, minus x minus 2. And then we'll distribute that negative 3x. So this becomes a negative 3x cubed plus a 3x squared plus a 6x. And then again, you can always check by plugging in your values to make sure you get 0. As well as plugging in 1, you should get 6, okay? So that is just a quick way to check your work, and as long as assuming that I'm making my work as well. Or I did my work as well. So Drew said, test anxiety, and how do I go ahead and best prepare for my test? He thought he was ready and prepared for his test, and then he was just kind of getting like forgetting some things. He wasn't sure how to memorize things. And it was just becoming overwhelming, which of course, obviously at this time of the year that we would probably be having a lot more stress going on. But I know a lot of you had a lot of, cancellations and exams and stuff like that. So let me bring up my two thoughts. My first thought is, if you want to be best prepared for your test, over prepare. That means overstudy. I don't really mean overstudy, but make sure that you have done all your problems. You've reviewed, you've done all the work, you've asked your questions, you've gone in, you did the work ahead of time. You should not need to do any more work a couple days before the test. You should be completely done with all of your work. The last couple days before your test should be like mindset preparing, right? You should be test preparing with your brain, not with like studying. So if you're still trying to cram in information the night before the test, it's too late. It's, you might keep it, you might not, but it's not going to be serving you as far as preparing for your test. And the best way I think about this is, the Michael Jordan's been on the news a lot with his documentary, but so it kind of made me think like, everybody talks about, Michael Jordan, he always had the last shot. And it was so like natural, and he was the best of the best because he could hit those last shots. But everybody oversimplifies that, and they don't think about all of the work, all of the time that he put into preparing to make that last shot, as well as all the other failures, all the other shots that he missed that were the last shot. Of course, we only remember in the championship with 1 second less, the buzzer beater, and that's how he's remembered, which is great. But we also forget all the other times that he missed that shot, or all the times that he was practicing and putting himself out there to be prepared for that, right? So, your test is exactly that. It is where you are being assessed. So the best thing you can do to prepare for your test is over-prepare. Make sure that you are absolutely ready, have done all the work that you need to do. Oops, that's not supposed to. Have done all the work that you need to do so that you can go ahead and perform. And you might perform, you might not, right? But that's okay. Because if you don't perform, here kind of gets into the other thing of like him missing the shots, like relax. Think about this in perspective, right? Michael Jordan is known as one of the best or the best basketball player of all time. And he missed shots at the end of the game, buzzer beaters, right? And he also made shots, buzzer beaters. So you might fail a test. You might not do as well on a test. but that's okay. That's not going to define you, who you are. So just make sure you're putting in the work, putting in the effort, and keep on working at it. And I think that's the best thing you can do. Yes, over prepare and put in the work. But the other thing is, like, if you don't perform, or it doesn't work your way, it doesn't go your way, that's okay. Put it in perspective. Relax. Just keep on moving forward. And that kind of goes into what I talked about at the beginning of class as well. All right. Let's go and get into the last question here, and then I will get into your guys' chat and just kind of check in with you guys from on there. Ooh, too. So, all right. So synthetic division question. And I'm not sure. The student asked me what they were doing wrong, and I didn't have time to like write their work or look at their work. So what I just decided to do is go ahead and do the problem. So when I'm doing synthetic division, I recognize here that I am missing a spot, right? There's no x squared. So you need to make sure when you're doing synthetic division, what am I doing? I don't want to use that. When you're doing synthetic division, you're taking the coefficients of each term, right? But make sure you use a placeholder if you do not have a term. For instance, in this case, we don't have an x squared. So I'm going to have 4, -5, 0, 4, and -4. Also, when you're dividing, you want to make sure that you use the 0. So this is considered the factor. So you set your factor equal to 0. And then now you can go ahead and solve. So you have x equals 5/4. All right. So for synthetic division, bring down the first term, which is a 4. Multiply on the diagonal. 4 times 5/4 is going to be 5. -5 plus 5 is 0. 0 times 5/4 is 0. So again, we're multiplying the diagonal, adding on the vertical. 0 plus 0 is going to be 0. 0 times 5/4 is going to be 0. 4 plus 0 is 4. 4 times 5/4 is going to be a 5. -1 plus 5 is going to be a +1. So looks like everything was working out perfectly fine unless I made a mistake. No, I think unless you're supposed to have a remainder or I wrote it down wrong. But either way, there's a couple of mistakes though that I found. First of all, got to make sure you have the place value. That's a big common mistake. Also, we need to make sure we understand that synthetic division is just a tool. It's a shortcut, right? But if you were to actually divide this, like using long division, you wouldn't have 4 as a leading coefficient. Actually, let's kind of go through this here. Well, yeah, let's write it in there. 4x minus 5. So if we were to do long division, which many of you would not want to do, which again, we could check our answer, but I kind of want to talk to you guys. But again, let's do the first one. 4x divides into 4x to the 4th. How many times does that go in there? That goes into there x cubed times, right? It's very important to kind of understand that. That goes in there x cubed times, not 4x cubed times. So it goes into our understanding of like, what is this answer here? So what we first need to do is we need to go ahead and divide all terms by 4. So when you divide by terms or your coefficients by 4, what you're going to get is 1, 0, 0, 1. And then I believe this is 1/4. Actually, I don't even know. I haven't even worked that out. Let's just go through it. No, it would be 1. I don't know. Maybe let's leave that as 1 as a remainder. But let's go and write in the divisor. I'd actually have to work that out. Actually, I'm not sure. I probably should actually do the long division. All right, I'm going to do the long division. So x cubed times 4x is going to be a 4x to the 4th. X cubed times -5 is a -5x cubed. Group, subtract. That goes to 0. That goes to 0. Brings down my 4x. 4x goes into 4x. Positive 1 times. 1 times 4x is 4x. 1 times -5 is a -5. Okay, that still remains. Subtract your rows. That becomes a +1. Okay, so the remainder, you just divide the other coefficients. So remember, this is your remainder. This is your constant. This is your linear. This is your quadratic. And that's your cubic. That's why the quotient, sometimes we'll call that q of x, is going to be x cubed plus 1. And then again, there's a remainder. So we'll say plus your remainder over your divisor, which is 4x minus 5. So that's just one way you can write your quotient when you have a remainder. So you can take the quotient plus the remainder over the divisor. So hopefully that helps you out. What's up, Joe Schmo? Depends on the circumstances. Ooh. Ripple, should I take AP Calc or AB or college algebra for senior year in high school, both at the same time? What are the future benefits for both? It really depends on what, Joe Schmo's got it. Like whatever your situation is or circumstances, like what are you trying to achieve? Why do you want to take college algebra and why do you want to take, college calculus, basically? So, it really depends on what you want to get into. And if you feel like you have a strong math background, then I'd say give calculus a try, and especially if you're planning on going into a calculus based curriculum or, in occupation that you want to study, then yeah, take it, go for it, see how you do. It's going to better prepare you in college. In the same coin, if you're taking a whole bunch of other classes, you're not sure if really a math-based professions or you're going to have to take more math classes is really going to be where you want to be, and you kind of feel like you aren't that great with math and it's kind of struggle with it already, then maybe you need to reset your skills for the college algebra. So Park says, do you personally prefer graphing ellipses or hyperbolas? I guess ellipses. I don't know why, but I don't really graph them in my classes anymore, or at least my students. We just kind of use we use like graphing technology. I'm going into calc in my first year of college. Any tips? Yes, create cheat sheets and make sure you get with the study group. Basically, I never would have been as successful in my college calculus and pre-calculus if I did not have people that I could rely on and ask questions for. You skipped my question. Well, sorry. I have a lot of questions actually that I skipped. So I'm trying to do my best. And actually, I see your question. I have absolutely no idea to how to answer your question or where to answer your question, because I would just check with your counselor, because I do not know, unfortunately. So sorry about that. For teaching such a thing, you are very welcome. I'm currently in pre-calc over the summer. That's good. Good job. Taking pre-calc over the summer. What level did you study? I just got my bachelor's in mathematics. So I didn't go anything great. Didn't go anything past that. I did kind of have some regrets. I do kind of wish I would have continued studying mathematics, but that is also something that still interests me. So it might be something I might go back into, and hopefully take you guys for a ride on that as well. James, again, guys, everybody has different circumstances, and every class, every school is going to be structured a little bit differently. But yeah, I'd go for it for sure. Try to take algebra too. It depends on how everything's grading your grade and how you did and how you feel prepared. No, Dimmer, I'm not going to cover that today or tonight. But I will. I can definitely go over another math problem here for you after. I can definitely go over another one of those problems. But just make sure you guys put in the chat, and then also just to remind you guys too. Again, if I did not get to your question, I know there are some of you guys that got into the chat early, and a lot of times I like to get into the chat early and just kind of reward those of you that do that with some of your to answer some of your questions. I just didn't get to it in time. But again, guys, please, I do look at every single question that gets submitted to me on my Google form, as well as Discord. And Discord, I do not answer all of the questions. I really just kind of pick to see which questions have not been answered that I could address. But a lot of people already help each other out with Discord. So it's been pretty good up to this point as well. So, people helping each other. But as far as the Google form, those I definitely check before I go live and answer your questions. Julio, retire or I'm a dislike. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not sure when I'm going to retire to answer your question, but sure. What are you taking high school or for ninth grade? It depends on where you're at, Florent. I don't know. Everybody has a different perspective on what they need and where they're from. Yeah, the Google form is on the community chat. I guess I should probably put it in the description. It's not in the description, is it? Have a question? Submit your question. Yeah, it's actually in the description. It says, in this live stream, I'm going to cover the changes I made on my YouTube. Oh, I got to change that. Oops. Have questions? Submit your question on the form. So it's in the description of this live stream. I guess I didn't realize that I'm reduplicating when I have that. So I'll go and get that. Ro, I'll get to your question next week. If you want to submit it on the Google form, please go and do that. Which is harder, college algebra or AP calculus? I would definitely say AP calculus is more difficult than college algebra, for sure. But I will say that, college courses definitely have their own rigor that is completely different. College algebra, I would say, is more difficult than algebra 2. So, it's and then determining on the college base is college calculus, more difficult than AP calculus. It really, I think it depends on the school, on where you're at. I think there's some very, very demanding AP calculus courses or compared to their college counterparts. However, and once you get into like calculus 2, for like BC, I would, a lot of colleges don't even accept the BC score because there's really not the rigor in the BC curriculum that they can provide inside of the classroom. So I think it's kind of a toss-up there. I have no idea, Dennis, as far as what you need to take for pharmacology. So I would just definitely talk to your advisor. Sorry, guys. I'm not a good help on that. Luis, nobody wants to complete the square for that. Use a calculator. No. Yeah, that's definitely that. Yeah, Runzi William. I would just, it really depends on ABBC. Really, I would just kind of look at your workload, what you're planning on doing. Yes, a lot of colleges, as far as what I've heard, do not take the BC credit, especially if you're going into something that's very math-based. They want you to take the BC course inside of their curriculum. Again, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just some of those things I have heard. But I think if you take BC and you challenge yourself, you're going to do very, very well if they take that credit or not, So, I mean, that's the part of challenging yourself that's prepared. But if you're already taking a whole bunch of AP courses and you're not even sure if you're going to be doing something that's math-based, then why why go through all that? But if you're a very strong math student and, whatever you plan on doing is going to be in that round to the math field, then challenge yourself. Take the BC, go for it. I was wondering if honors pre-calculus is more difficult than honors algebra 2. Yes, from my students, they would say that is definitely more difficult. How would you divide polynomials but with X and Y coordinates? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. How hard is calculus 2? It's all relative. I would say that it's like just another, typically it's just another step up from calculus 1. I think once you have the basics and understanding of calculus 1, then it's just building upon that just a little bit more for you to get into calculus 2. It's nothing crazy, but you do have to have the foundation from calculus 1. And then it's another little step, a little bit above, a little bit more advanced from there, but nothing crazy. Wow, you guys are asking a lot of math questions. Well, I guess that was the name of this live stream, was what math classes should I take? So I guess I should probably take a step back and try to answer your questions. Well, I am answering your questions best I can, but a lot of you guys, I know you just keep on asking about what math classes you should take. And I was like, why are you asking? That's so weird. And then I'm like, that's the name of the live stream. But I'm not a counselor, so that's why I'm telling you I don't know as far as those specific courses that you should take. Are the standard math programs taught in high school used everyday life or not really? I can only really talk about for my school and the majority of schools that teach the same type of curriculum that I teach, which I would say would be the majority of them. And I would say the majority of them do not teach math that is for everyday life. There's some good reasons for that and some poor reasons. Should we be including more math that is everyday related? Yes. Is there some math that we're still teaching that is very outdated, that is not really needed even for advanced classes? Yes. Is the purpose of mathematics to teach you just stuff that you're going to use in real life? No. So there is that little balance that, I think there's a lot of things that we're learning in mathematics, like for instance, like sine and stuff. If you're advancing your career in mathematics, like most students never use, outside of high school, you're never using sine. You maybe encounter it once or twice, around here, but that's about it, right? But, trigonometric functions is something that obviously for students that are advancing into mathematics, like they're going to want to know, they're going to need to know, right? So I don't feel everybody needs to understand everything in mathematics. However, for instance, like even these rules of exponents, like most students don't remember the power to product rule and like all these rules of exponents. And even if you're going into advanced mathematics, even when you're going into advanced mathematics, a lot of the stuff that we still teach is really not required, like where we could use graphing technology, for instance, graphing and so on and so forth. However, there is a lot of the rules that, students automatically always want to just, apply things. And not everything needs to be applied in mathematics. And so I think there's just a joy of learning about mathematics and discovery and curiosity that is also a very, very important role that mathematics plays. And we don't play around with that a lot in our current curriculum, which I think we should. So yes, I do believe we should be including some more real life based stuff that students could easily apply. But also we should be applying some stuff that is not applicable. But again, a lot of the stuff that we don't teach is because a lot of it cannot be assessed very easily, and again, if we can't assess them, we can't tell you guys what your grades are and everything else. So, and then you guys got to go into the next classes and so on and so forth. All right. Ever taught Title I school? Do you think standards are different there? I have not taught. Well, actually, I did teach. Well, I didn't know. I never taught in a Title I school, but I did do my internship at a Title I school. And do you think the standards are different there? No, I don't think the standards are different there. I mean, that's the whole point of standards, is to have the same standards. Obviously, schools, Title I schools, and compared to other schools or even advanced placement schools, like they're all going to have their I won't say as far as at least the general standards are going to be the same or supposed to be the same. But yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer that question or to respond to it. But obviously there's definitely advantages and disadvantages that are going to come at schools. And obviously, at a Title I, as far as funding, access to teachers and, school and classroom sizes and everything else. I'm not aware of everything, but just things that I've heard is obviously going to make an impact and affect the teachers as well as the teachers' ability to teach, students' ability to learn. And that's going to be much more different than maybe at other schools that have the funding or have the resources or have the class size and everything else they can apply. So there you go. I hope that answers your question, I guess, kind of. Taking linear, cool. Diamond method doesn't work for that problem. I'm also stuck. Gosh, where was that question? You can still do the diamond method. I mean, diamond method. Well, I guess no, it doesn't work. You'd probably have to. Best thing to do would do the quadratic formula if it's not working to be factored out like that, or complete the square. Yeah, the AP test, I don't know. I guess we'll just kind of see how that works the best it is. 2 questions is kind of weird. But the AP curriculum has been around for a while, and those people really kind of know what they're doing. So I think that they did the best they could do. And I know some people had trouble submitting their tests and everything like that, but I think they had to do the best they could do within the circumstances they had. And yeah, I mean, it's just a reality. I think it's better to have that than have no exam at all and no chance to earn AP credit. But yeah, it is sad for, people that put in a lot of effort and then they don't get assessed the way that other people got assessed, in previous years. And so I definitely understand a lot of people's frustration with that. But either way, guys, I am good for tonight as far as the live stream. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. I will continue uploading some content. Thank you so much again for those of you that are members and support my channel, which is allowing me to create that content, because I am out of the classroom for the summer and I am not coming back in the summer to make my videos because I am not allowed to go back to my classroom and make my videos. So I'm going to be in my studio making my videos, and I really appreciate you guys supporting my channel, and hopefully I can create some content that will get you ready and prepared for next school year. All right, guys, have a great night and Memorial Day for those of you celebrating, and I will see you guys next week. Cheers.